Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully it is a good Tuesday for y'all. I'm tired today. Okay, thank you, sis. In case you're wondering, she's over here in the YouTube chat and she said she could hear me and see me. So that is a good thing. Gonna wait a couple minutes because I did come on early. I'm drinking peach tea, hot peach tea. My son found it at the grocery store and he decided to get it. I'm drinking all of it. Pretty good. Hey, here comes the mascot. Mr. Ryder, the new one. The new mascot. Used to be Copper and Chub. He's waiting for something.
I know.
He's over there sitting on the kitchen floor waiting for his treat. Ryder. He won't come to me as long as he's waiting for his treat. He's a little bit spoiled. Just a little bit. So, Sunday at work was not a good day. I almost quit.
You missed again.
I left early. It was just a day. Like I said, just because we're all in AA and we work our steps doesn't mean that we don't still have those attitudes sometimes. So, yeah, that was me on Sunday. I was not happy, and my oldest kid, I love him, but sometimes, I don't agree with some things, and I don't know when to not say that, apparently. So, yeah. Or I ask a question, and I get a response that I wasn't looking for, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, hi, I'm Sandra, and I'm an alcoholic. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I see you over there, Brenda Chamberlain. Thank you for being here. Okay. In case you're wondering where I get my steps to read, right here in the front of the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book. But I know them by heart. Sometimes I do scramble them together. I don't know why, but it is what it is. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 8, see, there we went again. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Taught through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So please be nice in the comments or the chat. Just because somebody is here does not mean that they are the alcoholic. And I've had times where somebody went and was not very nice in somebody else's comments. So please don't do that. And it is a judgment-free zone. So please don't be judging people in here either. And I appreciate it. I am reading the big book right now. So I put it in the description what I'm reading, the page number. I'm in the 4th edition. You might be on a different page. And I am reading Acceptance Was the Answer on 407 in the 4th edition book. So if you're in a different book, it might be on a different page for you, just so you know. Hello, Kurt. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. So acceptance, and of course my sister Lily, thank you for always being here. I appreciate all your help with getting this meeting and getting it started. So acceptance was the answer. The physician wasn't hooked. He thought he just prescribed drugs medically indicated for his many ailments. Acceptance was his key to liberation. If there were ever was anyone who came to AA by mistake, it was I. I just didn't belong here. Never in my wildest moments had it occurred to me that I might like to be an alcoholic. Never once had my mother even hinted at the idea that when I grew up, I might like to be president of AA. Not only did I not ever even feel that I had all that much of a drinking problem, of course I had problems. All sorts of problems. If you had my problems, you drink too, was my feeling. And now, Copper wants up. And I'm reading. So just a second. Come on. You listening? Gonna listen while I read? Yes, I have tea. Drinking tea. So this is Ryder, everybody. He fits in just perfectly here. We all have our issues and our quirks and our funniness and stubbornness. Huh? He doesn't like being told no. My major problem was material. I don't know. If you had my wife, you'd drink too. Max and I had been married for 28 years when I ended up in AA. It started out as a good marriage, but it deteriorated over the years as she progressed through the various stages of qualifying for Al-Anon. At first, she would say, "You don't love me. Why don't you admit it?" Later, she would say, "You don't like me. Why don't you admit it?" And as her disease was reaching the terminal stage, she was screaming, "You hate me. You hate me." Why don't you admit you hate me? So I admitted it. I remember very well saying there's only one person in the world whose guts I hate worse than yours, and those are my own. She cried a bit and went to bed. That was the only answer to problems that she had left. I cried a bit and then mixed myself another drink. Today, we don't have to live like that anymore. Max hadn't gotten that way because I didn't care. Indeed, it seemed that I cared too much. I had sent her to 4 consecutive psychiatrics, and not one of them had gotten me sober. I also sent my kids to psychiatrists. I remember one time even the dog had a psychiatric diagnosis. I yelled at Max, "What do you mean? The dog just needs more love. You tell that dumb cat and dog doctor he's not a Beverly Hills psychiatrist. All I want to know is why does that dog wet in my lap every time I hold him? That dog hasn't wet my pants once since I joined AA, and neither have I." The harder I worked with Max, the sicker she got. So when it ended up at a psycho ward, I wasn't all that surprised. But then when that steel door slammed shut and she was the one that went home, I truly was amazed. I had begun to drink in the early years of pharmacy school in order to get to sleep. After going to school all day, working in the family drugstore all evening, and then studying until 1 or 2 in the morning, I would not be able to sleep soundly. With everything I had been studying going around in my head, I would be half asleep and half awake all in the morning. I would be both tired and stupid. Then I found the solution. At the end of the study time, I would drink 2 beers, jump in bed, sleep real fast, and wake up smart. I drank my way through school and always got honors. And as I went through pharmacy school, graduate school, medical school, internship, residency, and specialty training, and finally went into practice, my drinking kept increasing. But I thought it was because my responsibilities were increasing. If you had my responsibilities, if you needed to sleep, I'd sleep like I do, you'd drink too. My drinking took place after work hours. I remember finding myself in the middle of the night in the doctor's parking lot at the hospital with 1 foot in the car and 1 foot on the ground, not knowing which was the lead foot. Finding myself hanging up the telephone, then realized I hadn't gotten out of bed, answered the phone, turned on the light, and carried on a conversation with the patient. I didn't know whether I had told him to rush to the hospital and I'd meet him there, or to take 2 aspirins and call me in the morning. With a problem like that, I couldn't go back to sleep. So I'd sit up, watch old Wallace Berry movies on all night TV, and drink. The longer the drinking continued, the shorter the time the alcohol would keep me asleep. I would have to drink myself back to sleep again and again throughout the night. but I never became a morning drinker. Instead, I had a 5 a.m. shut-off time. If it was 1 minute before 5, I'd drink myself back to sleep. If it was 1 minute after, I'd stay up and act like a martyr all day. It became progressively harder to get up in the morning until one day I asked myself what I would do for a patient who felt this rotten. The answer? Hi, Tony. The answer came right back. I'd give him something to pep him up. So I immediately started taking and shooting pep pills. Eventually, I was taking 45 milligrams of the long-acting Benzedrine. I don't know what that is. And 45 of the short-acting just to get out of bed in the morning. I took more throughout the day to increase the high and more to maintain it. When I overshot the mark, I'd take tranquilizers to level off. The pep pills affected my hearing at times. I couldn't listen fast enough to hear what I was saying. I wonder why I'm saying that again. I've already said it 3 times. Still, I couldn't turn my mouth off. For the leveling off process, I just loved intravenous Demerol. But I found it hard to practice good medicine while shooting morphine. Following an injection, I would have to keep one hand busy while scratching my constantly itching nose and would also have sudden uncontrollable urges to vomit. I never got much effect out of codeine and Protecan. And the tranquilizers, however, for a period of time, I was injecting pentothal intravenously to put myself to sleep. That's the stuff used when the oral surgeon puts the needle in your vein and says, count to 10, and before you get to 2, you're asleep. Instant blackout was what it was, and it seemed delightful. I didn't feel I couldn't lie. I lie in bed and squirt the stuff in my vein while my kids and wife stood around watching me, so I kept the drug in my bag, and the bag in the car, and the car in the garage. Luckily, the garage was attached to the house. In the garage, I would put the needle in my vein and then try to figure out exactly how much medication to inject to overcome the pep pills while adding to the sleeping pills, while ignoring the tranquilizer in order to get just enough to be able to pull out the needle, jerk the tourniquet, throw it in the car, slam the car door, run down the hall, and fall in bed before I fell asleep. You can't see me or hear me. Oh, now you can? It was hard to judge the right amount. I think I already read that one. No, maybe I didn't. I didn't. One night, I had to put myself back to sleep 3 times, and then I finally decided to give it up. But to do so, I had to get all the stuff out of the house and out of my possession. In the end, I had to do the same with alcohol and all pills. I wasn't able to quit chemicals as long as they were in the house. If they were around, I always found a need for them, especially the pills. I never in my life took a tranquilizer, sedative, or pep pill because I was a pillhead. I always took it because I had the symptoms that only that pill would relieve. Therefore, every pill was medically indicated at the time it was taken. For me, pills don't produce the desire to swallow a pill. They produce the symptom that requires that the pill be taken for relief. As a physician and pharmacist who had grown up in a drugstore home, I had a pill for every ill, and I had a lot, or I was sick a lot. Today, I find I can't work my AA program while taking pills, nor may I even have them around my dire emergencies only. I can't say thy will be done and be solid alcoholic or be done and take a pill. I can't say I'm powerless over alcohol, but solid alcohol is okay. I can't say God could restore me to sanity, but until He does, I'll control myself with pills. Give up alcohol alone was not enough for me. I've had to give up all moods and mind affecting chemicals in order to stay sober and comfortable. On 2 occasions over weekends, I have decided I would take absolutely nothing. On each occasion, I had a convulsion on Sunday morning. Both times, my reaction was that I had nothing to drink the night before. So obviously, alcohol had nothing to do with the neurologist in charge of my case didn't think to ask me whether I drank and didn't think to tell and I didn't think to tell him. As a result, he couldn't figure out why I had the convulsions. And he decided to send me to the Mayo Clinic. It seemed to me I needed a consultation first. I happened to be the best diagnostician I knew at the time, and certainly I knew my case better than anyone else. So I sat down with me and went over the facts behind the convulsions, personality changes, daily headaches, sense of impending doom, sense of impending insanity. Suddenly, it was obvious to me. I had a brain tumor and would die, and everyone would be sorry for me. The Mayo Clinic seemed like a good place to have my diagnosis confirmed. After 9 days of tests at Mayo, I was put in the locked ward of all places. That's when the steel door slammed shut. Max was the one who went home. I didn't like being on the nut ward, and I particularly didn't like being forced to ice cookies and Christmas Eve, so I raised enough fuss that they finally agreed to let me sign out against medical advice. Max accepted responsibility for me after I had promised never to drink again, never to take another pill, never to swear again, and never to talk to girls again. What we got on the plane and immediately had a big fight over whether I drink the free booze. Max won. I didn't drink it, but by God, I would talk or eat either. Wouldn't talk or eat either. And that was how Max and I and our 2 daughters spent Christmas Day 8 years ago. When we got home, I got a bottle of scotch and went to bed. The next day, Max called the neurologist and told him about the Mayo psychiatrist's opinion. And he arranged for me to see a local psychiatrist who quickly decided I should be in the mental health unit of our local hospital. The people there insisted on putting me in a ward. Then when Max and I both knew I ought to have a private room, finally she asked, "Do you realize he's on the staff of this hospital and I got my private room?" Time went by very, very slowly, and my second nut ward, I never could quite get the knack of it, and kept asking myself, what's a nice guy like me doing in a place of all things, or a place like this? They wanted me to make leather belts of all things. Had I gone to school all those years just to sit and make leather belts? Besides, I couldn't understand the instructions. The girl had explained them to me 4 times, and I was too embarrassed to ask her again. I am pleased to state, however, that I had gone to only a few AA meetings before I was able to make a really beautiful pair of moccasins and halt of a wallet. I wore those moccasins every night for the next 7 years until they wore out. For my 7th AA birthday, my program-oriented Al-Anon wife had my moccasins bronzed. Now I own perhaps the most costly pair of moccasins anyone has ever seen, and they help me remember where I've been. In the hospital, I hung on to the idea I'd had most of my life, that if I could just control the external environment, the internal environment would then become comfortable. Much of my time was spent writing letters, notes, orders, and lists of things for Max. Okay. In the hospital, I hung on to the idea I'd have most of my life, that if I could just control the external environment, the internal environment would then become comfortable. Much of my time was spent writing letters, notes, orders, and lists of things for Max, who was also my office nurse, to keep the world running while I was locked up. One has to be petty or has to be pretty sick to do that, and perhaps one has to be even sicker to come back every day for a new list as she did. Today, we don't have to live that way. Max still works with me in the office, but we have turned our wills and our lives and our work over to the care of God, each with the other as a witness. We took the third step out loud, just as it says in the big book. And life keeps getting simpler and easier as we try to reverse my old ideas by taking care of the internal environment via the 12 steps and letting the internal environment take care of itself. Or external, sorry. One day, as I sat there in the hospital, my psychiatrist walked up behind me and asked, "How do you like to talk to the man from AA?" My reaction was that I'd already helped all the patients on the ward, and I still have plenty of problems of my own without trying to help some drunk from AA. But by the look on the psychiatrist's face, I could tell that it would really make him happy if I agreed. So, for no better reason than to make him happy, I agreed. Very shortly, I realized that had been a mistake. When this big clown came bounding into the room, almost shouting, "My name is Frank and I am an alcoholic. Ha ha ha." And I'm an alcoholic. I really felt sorry for him. The only thing in life he had to brag about was the fact that he was an alcoholic. It wasn't until later that he told me he was an attorney. Against my better judgment, I went to a meeting with him that night, and a strange thing began to happen. The psychiatrist, blah blah, whatever that word is, who had generally been ignoring me, now became quite interested. Every day he would ask me all kinds of questions about the AA meetings. At first, I wondered whether he was alcoholic himself and was sending me to find out about AA. But it quickly became obvious that he had this childish notion instead. If he could get me to go to enough meetings while in the hospital, I would continue to go after he let me out. So, for no better reason than to fool him, I asked Frank to take me to a meeting every night, and Frank to take me to a meeting every night, and Frank did set me up for a meeting every night, except Friday, when he thought he might have a date with his girlfriend. That's a devil of a way to run an organization, I thought, and I reported Frank to the psychiatrist, who didn't seem perturbed he just got someone else to take me on Fridays. Eventually, the psychiatric discharged me from the hospital, and Max and I began going to meetings ourselves. Right from the start, I felt that they weren't doing anything for me, but they were helping Max. We sat in the back and talked only to each other. It was precisely a year before I spoke at an AA meeting. Although we enjoyed the laughter in the early days, I heard a lot of things that I thought were stupid. I re- I interpreted sober as meaning drinking but not being drunk. When a big, healthy looking young fellow stood up there and said, "I'm a success today if I don't drink today," I thought, man, I've got 1,000 things to do today before I can brag about not drinking at the time. Today, there is absolutely nothing in the world more important to me than keeping this alcoholic sober. Not taking a drink is by far the most important thing I do each day. It seemed that all they talked about at meetings was drinking, drinking, drinking. It made me thirsty. I wanted to talk about my many big problems. Drinking seemed a small one, and I knew that giving up one drink for one day wouldn't really do any good. Finally, after 7 months, I decided to try it. To this day, I am amazed at how many of my problems, most of which had nothing to do with drinking, I believed have become manageable or have simply disappeared since I quit drinking. I had already given up all the narcotics, most of the pills, and some of the alcohol when I first came to AA. By early July, I had tapered off alcohol completely, and I got off all pills in the ensuing few months. When the compulsion to drink left, it was relatively easy to stay off alcohol, but for some reason it was difficult to keep from taking a pill. When I had an appropriate symptom, such as a cough, pain, anxiety, insomnia, a muscle spasm, or an upset stomach, it has gotten progressively easier. Today, I feel I have used up my right to chemical peace of mind. It helped me a great deal to become convinced that alcoholism was a disease, not a moral issue, that I have been drinking as a result of a compulsion, even though I had not been aware of the compulsion at the time, and that sobriety was not a matter of willpower. The people of AA had something that looked much better than what I had, but I was afraid to let go of what I had in order to try something new. There was a certain sense of security in the familiar. At last, acceptance proved to be the key to my drinking problem. After I had been around AA for 7 months, tapering off alcohol and pills, not finding the sorry, not finding the program working very well, I was finally able to say, okay, God, it is true that I, of all people, strange as it may seem, and even though I don't give my permission, really, I really am an alcoholic of sorts, and it's all right with me. Now, what am I going to do about it? When I stopped living in the problem and began living the answer, the problem went away. From that moment on, I have not had a single compulsion to drink. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems. Today, when I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me, and I can find a serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitude. Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. He forgot to mention that I was the chief critic. I was always able to see the flaw in every person, every situation, and I was always glad to point it out because I knew you wanted perfection, just as I did. AA and acceptance of us and a bit of bad in the best of us, that we are all God, are all children of God, and we each have a right to be here. When I complain about me or about you, I am complaining about God's handiwork. I am saying that I know better than God. For years, I was sure the worst thing that could happen to a nice guy like me would be that I would turn out to be an alcoholic. Today, I find it's the best thing that has ever happened to me. This proves I don't know what's good for me. And if I don't know what's good for me, then I don't know what's good or bad for you or for anyone. So I'm better off if I don't give advice, don't figure I know what's best, and just own life. And just accept life on life terms as it is today, especially my own life, as it actually is. Before AA, I judged myself by my intentions while the world was judging me by my actions. Acceptance has been the answer to my material problems. It's as though AA had given me a new pair of glasses. Max and I have been married now for 35 years. Prior to our marriage, when she was a shy, scrawny adolescent, I was able to see things in her that others couldn't necessarily see. Things like beauty, charm, gately, a gift for being easy to talk to, a sense of humor, and many other fine qualities. It was as if I had rather than a Midas touch which turned everything to gold, a magnifying mind that magnified whatever it forced on. Over the years, as I thought about Max, her good qualities grew and grew, and we married, and all these qualities became more and more apparent to me, and we were happier and happier. But then, as I drank more and more, the alcohol seemed to affect my vision. Instead of continuing to see what was good about my wife, I began to see her defects. And the more I forced my mind, the more, I don't know how long this one is. It's two more pages. The more apparent to me let me go back a little bit. Over the years, as I thought about Max, her good qualities grew and grew, and we married, and all these qualities became more and more apparent to me, and we were happier and happier. But then, as I drank more and more, the alcohol seemed to affect my vision. Instead of continuing to see what was good about my wife, I began to see her defects. And the more I focused my mind on her defects, the more they grew and manipulated or multiplied. Every defect I pointed out to her became greater and greater. Each time I told her she was a nothing. She receded a little more into nowhere. The more I drank, the more she wilted. Then one day in AA, I was told that I had the lenses in my glasses backwards. The courage to change in the serenity prayer meant not that I should change my marriage, but rather that I should change myself and learn to accept my spouse as she was. AA has given me a new pair of glasses. I can again focus on my wife's good qualities and watch them grow and grow and grow. I can do the same thing with an AA meeting. The more I focus my mind on its defect, late start, long becomes, long drunkalog, cigarette smoke, and worse, the meeting becomes. But when I try to see what I can add to the meeting rather than what I can get out of it, and when I focus my mind on what's good about it, rather than what's wrong with it, the meeting keeps getting better and better. When I focus on what's good today, I have a good day. And when I focus on what's bad, I have a bad day. If I focus on a problem, the problem increases. If I focus on the answer increases. Today, Max and I try to communicate what we feel rather than what we think. We used to argue about our differing ideas, but we can't argue about our feelings. I can tell her she ought not to think a certain way, but I certainly can't take away her right to feel however she does feel. When we deal in feelings, we tend to come to know ourselves and each other much better. It hasn't been easy to work out this relationship with Max. On the contrary, the hardest place to work this program has has been in my own home with my own children, and finally with Max. It seems if I should have learned to love my wife and family first. The newcomer to AA laughed, but it was the other way around eventually. I had to redo each of the 12 steps specifically with Max in mind. For the first, saying, I'm powerless over alcohol and my home life and life is unmanageable by me. To the 12th, in which I tried to think of her as a sick Al-Anon and treat her with the love I would give a sick AA newcomer. When I do this, we get along fine. Perhaps the best thing of all for me is to remember that my serenity is inversely proportional to my expectations. The higher my expectations of Max and other people are, the lower in my serenity is my serenity. I can watch my serenity level rise when I discard my expectations. Force my serenity level down, I have to discard my rights, as well as my expectations, by asking myself, how important is it? Really, how important is it compared to my serenity, my emotional sobriety? And when I place more value on my serenity and sobriety than on anything else, I can maintain them at a higher level, at least for the time being. Acceptance is the key of my relationship with God today. I never just sit and do nothing while waiting for Him to tell me what to do. Rather, I do whatever is in front of me to be done, and I leave the results up to Him, however it turns out. That's God's will for me. I must keep my magnifying mind on my acceptance and off of expectations. For my serenity is, I remember this. I can see I've never had it so good. Thank God for AA. I highlighted and marked in my book like normal. Thanks to my sponsor for getting me into the highlighter and marking my book. It works. So I'm going to go all the way back to the front of this one. Okay, so the first part I highlighted was Max hadn't gotten that way because I didn't care. Indeed, it seemed that I cared too much. I had sent her to 4 consecutive psychiatrics, and not one of them had gotten me sober. I also sent my kids to psychiatrists. So in that, we alcoholics, especially when we were in our drinking days, we tend to think that we can blame somebody else and act like they're the ones with the problem, and denying that we are the ones that have the problem. And that's an alcoholic and an addict, okay? So I know I have friends out there that are recovering alcoholics and recovering addicts. And we all strive for that same thing, and that is to be sober and have a functional life. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy because we always have to hold ourselves accountable for our actions and accept what we can't control. And my sponsors always told me we can't control anything that's outside of our hula hoop, which I do have a hula hoop, and if I can't tell you what to do, I just have to learn how to accept it. And I've been trying really hard to do that, and acceptance is a hard thing. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I will always be a recovering alcoholic, and I have not erased those traits. I never will erase those traits. But I need to always try and remind myself that, things in my life I cannot control what others do. My actions is what I can control. And yes, I admit I had part in an argument the other day at work with my son. And I did say I didn't want to talk to him anymore. And that hurts. And now I can see back when I was in a relationship in the beginning and calling my spouse that wasn't my spouse yet to my parents. I can see why they were asking why things were showing up in my name with his last name. And so that's what my oldest son did. We were talking via text, and he called her his wife. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. No. And so I asked him on Easter, of all days, in a group chat with her and him. And I asked that question, and I took her comment as not very liking, not very nice. And I told my son that all I did was ask a question and, whatever. But I did react in a way that I probably shouldn't have. But I can see why my parents would flip out. Why they did flip out. Because it wasn't just him that, it wasn't just my husband that I said was my spouse. Before that, I've been given a promise ring. I had another person go and buy a ring, and then I told him no, and he threw it over the bridge. And sorry, I don't want to marry you. But that was all when I was a teenager. But my husband and I have been married for 25 years, almost 26, and we will be together for 30 in August. And our relationship has not always been great, especially through my alcoholism, and even now we still have our problems, and it is what it is. So I also marked in this, and it's all right with me. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. At last, acceptance proved to be the key to my drinking problem. After I had been around AA for 7 months, tapering off alcohol and pills, not finding the program working very well, I was finally able to say, okay, God, it is true that I, of all people, strange as it may seem, and even though I didn't give my permission, really, really am an alcoholic of sorts. And it's all right with me. Now, what am I going to do about it? When I stopped living in the problem and began living the answer, the problem went away. From that moment on, I have not had a single compulsion to drink. So I quit drinking 11 years ago, and I didn't start AA until I think maybe I was 90 days. I know it was still early in my sobriety that I started AA, and I didn't get my 24-hour coin until I was at my 7th year. And I have my days that I don't want to deal with stuff, and I do close myself off from people a lot. I don't go out of my way to be anywhere. But I do work AA at work because things will get to me easily, and I always have to remind myself, don't blast it at somebody else. It's not that person's fault, or don't throw that machine. It's not the machine's fault that it's not fixed, or it spits something out too fast. And just sometimes the little things get to me, and I don't know. Like I said, I almost quit my job on Sunday. And it was a lot. It was just a lot of things. So, yes, Sunday was a bad day for me. I know I didn't call my sponsor, but I know that I needed to exit myself from that situation, and I may not have a job because I left early, and I was like, whatever, I don't care. Just, I need to get out of here. And that's what I told my boss too. I was like, I seriously need to get out of here before I flip out. I'm having a mental health day and I'm going home. And that's exactly what I did. But I also have to thank that to AA as well, because there were people in those rooms that have those good ideas on ways that you can make it easier on yourself when you're in those situations. And one of them, thank him so much. Always have an exit plan. Always. And that is another reason why when I'm at work, I want my car at my work so I don't have to rely on somebody to come and get me and leave me there any longer to deal with that situation, because I don't want to flip out at work or anywhere else. And that is what AA taught me to do in my acceptance part. And every time I come across acceptance, it brings up that I have to accept that things are not always going to be how I want them. I can want them one way, and it probably will never be that way. Or it will be that way when it's supposed to be that way. And that is just part of life. And what AA has us do is accept the things in life. And accept things we can't change. And we only have today. Yeah, I know, I could have prayed. Yes, and I see my errors, I see my flaws, and I can only change my own. And that is what AA has taught me to do. And if I am uncomfortable in a situation, I will leave that situation. I have done that many times at my parents. If something's come up, I leave. Like arguing with somebody, and the fact that I have my own door, whether it's in my fifth wheel or in my apartment, I have my own door, my own bedroom door. If I want to throw a fit and have it my way, I will lock myself in my room and meditate and just pray that shit goes better. That's all I can do if I can't change it. And the only thing I can do is change me. And that's the accepting part, is accept that I can only change me. And so with that, thank you guys for being here for an AA meeting. I do them to help other people. It's my service work. And you darn right, I shout at the rooftops, off the rooftops, that I am a recovering alcoholic and I will be for the rest of my life. And I always have to remind myself that, because I don't want to go back. And that is one thing that has scared me since I got sober, is going back to who I was. And I don't want to be who I was. And I thank you guys for being here. And if you're struggling today, just know you're not alone. If you need help, there's help everywhere. If you need help with AA or NA, look them up. They're everywhere. There's meetings 24/7, and there's people that you can call, and they will help you. So just always know that you're not alone. And if you want to get sober, it's achievable. You just have to want it for you. And if you don't want it for you, it won't work. And I had to learn that too. So please, 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 shout that you're a recovering alcoholic anytime you have a chance to, and be sober on that day and stay sober from that day on. So with that, I'm going to say the serenity prayer and let you guys go back to your day. And I'll be live Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please hit that notification bell after you subscribe. And I hope to see you guys there. And I hope you have a great weekend and a great week. And I love you guys. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys. Love you guys.